Mr. Speaker, I'd much look forward to supporting this bill later on this evening. I welcome this bill. I think it's long overdue, regardless of Brexit, although, of course, Brexit will impact on trade deals and our ability to export and to strike bilateral trade deals in due course. But farmers, like all industries, need as much certainty as they get at the present time, and I therefore think it entirely regrettable that the Scottish Nationalist Party have chosen to put politics above certainty for their farmers in Scotland. Their farmers of Scotland deserve better. The challenge for my right honourable friend, and he is a friend of mine, and the challenge for him, it seems to me, is to balance the balance he strikes between environmental stewardship and the production of food. And there will always be those on all sides of the argument who argue he's erring on one side or the other. But I think what he must take away from this debate is the fact that this is it's not just about managing land, it's about the production of food. And we all have these balances in our own lives, in our own constituencies. In my own beautiful constituency of East Devon, the balance of ANOB against farming is a constant challenge, access to the countryside, which I'll come to in a minute. My right honourable friend can be a further champion of this industry by going even further than this bill allows him to go, by talking more and doing more to support, for instance, our land-based colleges. I have Bicton College in my constituency, which my right honourable friend actually visited in a previous incarnation as Education Secretary in May 2012 when he opened the Earth Centre there. We should do more to get young farmers into farming, to show them there is an industry there. We've seen a shrinkage in the amount of county farms up and down the country, and it's more difficult for young farmers to get in. And at the other end, work by trusts such as charitable trusts such as the Addington Fund, which looks after farmers when they have to vacate their residences, where they're living at the end of their farming career. So we need to show young people that there is a future in farming, because frankly there is a demographic problem in farming, and we need to encourage more of them into it. On the issue of food production, and here my right honourable friend has a real chance of being an absolute champion. Food labelling, I alluded to earlier in an earlier intervention. For too long we have put up with misleading food labelling, country of origin labelling. The consumer deserves better and needs to know the country of origin. We need to know what is purely British, what is being reared in Britain, produced in Britain, packaged in Britain, as opposed to imported into Britain, repackaged and sold in a misleading way. And I think he can go much further in this respect. Livestock transportation, another issue of great concern around this chamber. We can ensure we have the toughest regimes on our exports of livestock, which I hope will increase after Brexit. On our slaughterhouses and abattoirs, he's done a lot in this respect, and I've written to him in respect of one of my small abattoirs, which does very little business, and I think we have to have a light touch to ensure the best possible practice. I have one abattoir in my own constituency which has CCTV as well as someone sitting there, and they only slaughter animals about once or twice a week, and it is very onerous on what is a very small business, and I hope he will look at these issues when they arise. And also, we shouldn't shy away from some of the practices amongst halal butchery, Orthodox Jewish butchery, which frankly, some of the practices that those communities are using in terms of animal husbandry are simply not acceptable. And earlier I said we now have a chance to buy British policy. Somebody on the other side of the bench said we can't under WTO rules. Well, we don't know the rules yet, but we should put buying British products for our schools, our hospitals, our armed forces, once we're out of the EU, at the forefront of everything we do. Land access. My right honourable friend is absolutely right. We want to encourage people to make more use of the countryside, part of the anti-obesity campaign, but there is a quid pro quo. The landscape looks the way it does because it is farmed. It's man-made. Stone walling, ditches, hedge laying, they're all done at the expense of the farmer. And the farmer, therefore, is due some compensation. And to just open up land irrespective of that, to not acknowledge this as private land for which people are paying to maintain, is entirely wrong. I think there's a wonderful opportunity to review the whole issues of footpaths, which are way out of date, and indeed maybe look at compensation for farms which are covered in footpaths. We need to look at bridleways, the use of off-road vehicles. So many of these things we can do now that we are coming out of the EU. This country should be able to feed itself. That's the duty of the government. and I think the opposition amendment this afternoon is both unnecessary and frankly unintelligible. But I do believe this country should be able to feed itself, and hopefully this bill will bring that goal one step closer.